I understand that one of our testifiers needs to go early, so I'm going to call him up in just a moment. Just to remind you, people wishing to testify during a public forum are encouraged to submit their testimony in writing, summarize their comments at the meeting. Public comment should be limited to 3 minutes per speaker. The number of speakers allowed to present depends on the number of people wishing to address the board and the time remaining on schedule. So I think we have 14 people, so I think the 3 minutes is probably adequate, and we won't get ourselves into trouble, right? Everybody else can stay here for that time? Mm-hmm. All right. So Chris Walker, I know you have to leave, so you want to talk to us?
Yeah, sorry. I noticed that on the new lift buses, there is no railing. On the old ones, they have a rail in front of the front seats before the lift. They have a little space for a wheelchair or whatever, but these new ones, they have to put the seats up for extra wheelchair space, and so if you're sitting up front, there's no space for a rail or whatever because the seats lift up, and then that allows for extra spacing for more wheelchairs. Well, yesterday, I was in one of those front seats, and they stopped really hard, and red light or yellow light came on real quick, and I had to stop real hard, and I went forward a little bit, and didn't hurt myself or anything, but I'm thinking of people who may have issues. I know it's hard to get a rail in there that could, but I'm just wondering if there's a way to possibly get a movable rail stanchion or something that can like click to the floor or whatever to help people with disabilities or who are sitting in the front seats, either on both sides. Sometimes I can, but on the other side you have that grab bar. But it's just something that I noticed that somebody could really hurt themselves on.
So that's the seats just behind the wheelchair
yes.
area. Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much, Chris. Appreciate it. Go catch your ride.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, so I want to call the next two up here. I have Amy Mall and Arnold Panich. Have I got that right? Yes. Amy, please go ahead.
Hi.
Nice to see you.
Thank you. Thanks for taking the time to hear what I have to say. I'd like to speak about the upcoming proposed service improvements, and in particular, the ones that involve increasing frequency of service. I live in St. John's, and I use the line 16 to commute to work at the south end of downtown every day. I also work a second job on the weekends, and I run a small business, so I'm pretty busy. I take the bus to reduce my car's pollution impact and to save money on gas and parking. I'd like to offer my opinion about why frequent service is important to commuters. I love the number 16 line. It gets me from St. John's to downtown in about 25 minutes, which is less than half as long as any other route. The 16 is heavily used by commuters during rush hour since it's by far the best option for getting downtown quickly. Unfortunately, the 16 only runs every 40 minutes to an hour. That means if I need to be at work by 8 a.m., I have to catch a bus at 6:50. If I leave work at 5, some days I don't get home until almost 6:30. So even though the bus takes only 25 minutes to get downtown, the infrequent service effectively increases my workday by more than 2 unpaid hours each day. I'm busy enough that if I need to be somewhere after work, I usually have to drive to work rather than take the bus. I'm fortunate to have that option, but a lot of people in my neighborhood don't have the option to drive. Although the current proposal won't help with my bus line, there are many people living along these routes who are in similar situations to me. Adding just 1 or 2 extra buses might allow those riders to pick up their kids from daycare, to get a second job, to take an evening class, or to make it home for dinner with their family. So TriMet provides an incredibly valuable service, but for that service to be effective, the buses need to run frequently enough for people who work to fit transit time into their busy schedules. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please proceed.
I'm Arnold Panich. I serve at your pleasure on the Committee for Accessible Transportation. I rode the bus this morning in 13 minutes. I rode the bus yesterday in 2.5 hours. So it does make quite a bit of difference when I-5 is not working.
Oh, sorry.
I want to talk a bit about the lift service. When you cut back the bus lines, you cut back the lift. The lift is coordinated with how far you live from the bus lines. Weekend service, Saturdays, Sundays, and evening service has been a real big problem. And I encourage you in this new budget round to return full lift rights for transit mobility impaired people, door-to-door service. When we queried your staff about how much money you were saving when you cut back the service, the staff said that fixed costs, the rise in per ride costs, there was no service savings at all. No financial service savings at all, and you've been cutting back the mobility rights of our least able citizens. My second comment has to do with universal access for students. And I advocate not only the Portland Public Schools, but the number of school districts within the city, as well as the school districts in the full 3-county area. We're building a new Portland to Milwaukee light rail line that's going to go to the front door of the Milwaukee High School. Why not talk to the Milwaukee School District about their students and give them passes so that they can get over that bridge right to PSU, to the Life Sciences building, as high school kids. They can get on the aerial tram and go to OHSU and do some mentoring about medical arts on TriMet, on public transit, for free at their leisure. I get a big kick out of kids from distant schools coming on TriMet to athletic events at Wilson High School. And it's a pleasure to see the Cleveland shirts on the kids coming for their football game at Wilson High School on TriMet because they have that access. It's really important to me. And I mentioned this in your earlier meeting. The priest will tell you, if you give me a boy for 5 years, I'll make you a Catholic for life. Let's use TriMet as an educational resource. And then finally, I fully endorse the purchase of new buses. These high-floor, old 1000 series buses have had it. I'm getting into my 70s now. I ride all the time, and they're hard as heck to get in and out of, especially the back door, flapping back door on a stop without even a sidewalk. And the bus can kneel in the front. He pulls the bus right in there. I'm in the back of the bus, trained to get off at the back of the bus, and it's really hard getting in and out of those buses. We also have reliability issues also. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Arnold. Thank you for coming. You know, in terms of when we get into the budget discussion, I'm surprised to hear that there's no savings as a result of the changes. So maybe you could, I don't want you to answer it now.
Right, we'll get back to you.
Okay, thank you. All right, the next two are again Lane Jensen and R.A. Fontaine. Please.
Okay, thank you, Larry Fonts. I don't mean this to be a total waste of your time, but I'd like to talk for a couple minutes about the possible impact of autonomous vehicles in TriMet operations. We're not talking about the next 5 years, but 10, 15, 20 years at the most. Now, nobody knows what they're going to be, but here are some things that we do know right now. First off, that Google's got a lot of press operating AVs safely for hundreds of thousands of miles. We know that there are other companies, auto companies, electronics manufacturers, universities. A lot of people are getting into researching this. This stuff is coming. Nobody sees any insurmountable technological barriers. The barriers that are seen are human ones: social, legal, insurance, and so forth. Even so, Google execs predict AVs will be generally available to the public within about 5 years. Carlos Ghosn, CEO of Nissan Renault, says he'll have a model out by 2020. His equivalent at Volvo says the same thing, 2020. BMW says they have a schedule. 2016, they'll have essentially what will be driver assisted, something like a higher grade of what do you call it? When you're driving along, you just click the button, that's it, cruise control. And then by 2020, what they'll have is a system be able to operate without direct driver intervention, but when driver intervention is needed, they'll have a few seconds of warning. Enough so that the driver will be able to text, scream at the kids, whatever, plenty of time to go safely. 2025, purely autonomous operations. And this is what the consensus is tending to build on right now, is 2025. The IEEE, Institute for Electrical Engineers, say they expect AVs to be 75% of all vehicles on the road and within 30 years. 75% of all vehicles. So how will this affect TriMet? First off, one, you can reasonably expect the transit and commercial operators will be among the early adopters. The money is just so incredible that you can be saving. How much do you spend a year per bus? I think it's around $150,000. So you can put a lot of money into a robot system and have it paid off fast, a lot faster than electronic fare collection. Second thing is, once the public has access to shared robocars, whether they're robotaxis, autonomous zip cars, or whatever, you can expect ridership to drop precipitously, fast, and deeply. Car2Go, for example, right now charges 35 cents a minute for a driver-operated car. Imagine if somebody without a driver's license has the access to that. In 7 minutes, you can beat TriMet, wherever you get in 7 minutes. Compare the experience for an AV versus TriMet. AV, it comes to your house. You go exactly where you go. You get out. You go to, no stops, no standing in the rain. You're not dealing with other people. No waiting. I just want to make three quick comments. What you have to do is, you have to expect that it's going to be a severe impact. You need to get out of long-term debt by 2025 the latest. Two, you'll have to fully fund all obligations. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think the future is going to be very interesting.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Lane.
Oh, wonderful. Well, again, board members, Mr. McFarland, thanks for having me up here again this morning. I do appreciate that. I do want to come to you with another pressing issue. I have done my own research this last month. I'm sure you all know that I'm very computer savvy and very research savvy. I've done some research in the past month with salaries, because of course, the raises and salaries have been a hot topic lately, especially in the news. And what I find interesting, big thing that I find interesting are the passes. Now, the board was talking about the 2-hour transfer price, $250. But what you failed to talk about were the monthly bus passes. Now, according to Wikipedia, Portland is 14th currently in overall ridership within the U.S. They're currently 14th, which is very odd to me because, of course, Los Angeles, LA Metro or LAC Metro, their current monthly bus pass is only $75. And yet Chicago, which is one of the bigger transit agencies, third in the entire U.S., who carries over average of 1 million riders per weekday, their pass is $100. Yet, why do we here at TriMet, when we only carry about 300,000 riders, average weekday, why is our pass $100? Why is Boston, their pass is only $70, yet they carry almost 500,000 riders average weekday? Again, the numbers don't seem to be adding up here. Here's what also doesn't add up to me. Boston's general manager, their general manager is making $220,000 a year average salary. Chicago's general manager, $198,000. Yet Mr. McFarland's sitting over here with a salary of $221,450. Yet there are transit agencies that carry more riders, have more buses, have more bus fleets, yet they're getting paid less. Labor relations, Mr. Randy Sedman, I'm sure he's behind me, $175,000 a year, yet the labor relations person in Seattle is only $101,000. Again, these numbers do not add up. The deputy GM, which I believe will be Bob Nelson, the salary according to the budget is $195,000, yet King County Metro's deputy GM is only making $151,000. I've done these numbers, I put them together, yet these numbers seem to not add up. Why are we at TriMet spending more money for salaries than higher up transit companies who carry more riders, have more buses, have more square mileage, to cover, yet they're spending less on these high positions? Makes no sense to me. Thank you.
Paulette Rossi and Jared Franz. Paulette, feel free.
Yes. Hello, I'm Paulette Rossi, and I'm here to briefly touch on the significance of number 6. There are 6 wheels on a bus, 6 mirrors, and the letters that spell out the name of the bus are 6 inches tall. In 6 days, on April 30th, I will be 6 decades old, and I get to my bus stop on Northeast 148th and Airport Way at 6:06 a.m. and it's train 8736. About now, you think I'm on a roll with the number 6, and because you're talking about numbers, I'm going to ask you to buy lottery tickets to increase your coffers. But I actually think that we can play around, scramble with all those 6-inch tall letters and, you know, put the numbers out of the way for a while. I think if you ride the bus a lot, you know how good it feels on a dark night. It's pouring rain, the east wind is blowing, and you look down the street and you see a bus. And you know it's a bus because of those 6-inch tall yellow-orange letters. And it's no longer a vehicle. You're seeing it as the Pineapple Express. It's going to give you heat. It's going to give you shelter. And then there's always this voice behind you waiting for the bus. And he says, "That's not a bus. Why are you misleading us? That's the Porty Potty suck-up truck." Now, I am not hallucinating. I'm not having hypothermia, but on the older buses, all of those 6-inch tall yellow-orange letters in the distance, every freight truck with yellow lights around the roof looks like a bus. And it is just so deflating to look down and it's not the bus when you want it. So it's always good to play scramble with letters on LED lit 3000 series buses because you can see them coming 4 blocks away and they're always the bus because of the white LED lights. Now you can scramble the letters into anything you want, but there is a phrase that's very dear to me. Happy birthday, Paulette, and it is divisible by 6. Thank you.
Thank you. Jared, I want you to try to follow that.
I can't follow that. Wow. So, President Warner, members of the board, you know me very well. I think I want to sort of frame my entire comment today with, I guess, a not so subtle nod to Board Member Stovall and remind us of the 4th habit of Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and that's think win-win. And before I say anything else and move on with my comments, I also do want to thank this board for the budget revisions that they've done. It shows transparency and responsibility, and as Board Member Stovall has said, reveals how public process is supposed to work. It's a better budget now, it's a more transparent one that's easier for community members to understand. I also want to thank TriMet staff for their progress on the Transit Equity Committee and for inviting Opal to participate on that. I think it's an amazing step forward for transportation justice in the region. I want to acknowledge the service increases that are being proposed. And also recognize, as we have in the past, the board's attempt to move board locations around the region to make these meetings easier for transit riders to attend. Related to that, I do have an ask of this board, and that's that the May board meeting be held in the evenings instead of in the morning. This would make it much easier for transit riders or transit users and people who work during the day to attend the board meeting. And we are hoping to turn out a lot of people to the board meeting. Not for the reasons that we turned out people last year for a board conversation, but because we want to have a celebration. We want to memorialize TriMet's sincere commitment to move forward on research and a timeline for extension of transfer times and to present this board with a recommendation based on those findings. So let me return to this idea of thinking win-win. I know we put out this press release that some people felt the headline was misleading. in the 12 hours since we've sent that out, the public reaction has been overwhelmingly positive. Even people as far away as Boston and national organizations are starting to ask the question, is extending transfers a reasonable way to increase service when we don't have money for more buses or for lower fares? And this is really an opportunity for TriMet to be a national leader, doing something innovative and pursuing a solution that was recommended and developed by riders and supported by drivers. Broad community support for this. Now, there's always going to be this question of how much it costs. Our initial estimates say $2 million. I look forward to working with Nancy Jargisi to review our initial estimates. And we do patiently await the Eco Northwest estimates that are on their way. We recognize that there's further study. But the paper that I circulated to you today is a way for TriMet to include in their budget narrative a formal commitment to the public that they're placing a timeline on this research and hope to arrive at a date to propose this research and recommendation to the board. And we know that at the end of the day, the board will find this proposal irresistible. Some of this is actually a no-brainer, especially the after 7 thing, when you start actually looking at those numbers. And we also know that TriMet can afford it. It's really time for everyone in this room to stop pretending that the budget conversation last year was anything but a crisis. That wasn't. It's good news for us. We all have more money than we expected, and this is a way to give it back to riders.
Thank you, Jared. Here's your comment. Our next couple, Cameron Johnson and even more. Good morning, Cameron.
Ladies first.
Okay.
Okay, fine. Makes sense to follow Jared because I do want to echo some of the things that he said. I'm Avon Moore, and I am a BRU member. I had the opportunity to join a meeting with members of the TriMet staff and board yesterday. And I want to thank you for the commitments made at that meeting and today to work with transit riders on addressing some of the inequities in our system. And additionally, I want to thank you for whatever changes, even the level of transparency continue to happen. I think we've been seeing some of that, and that's pretty exciting. I'm also excited that the agency has a timeline